welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Steve Van Einstein. Thank y'all for joining me again today as we go through and we do the day's daily reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations. This will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning that you'll get my genuine response, reactions, observations, and what I relate to about the reading. Because this will be the first time that I read it or hear it right here on the podcast with y'all. So it's always a journey, right? It's always an adventure. And yesterday's was I loved everything about yesterday's. Struck a very deep chord, a very big truth of mine that heaven and hell are inward states. That's the line it closed with. And I truly believe that today. So I hope that that's something that you all can find that listen on into this too. So I appreciate everyone jumping on with me. Here we go. This is going to be August 20th of James Allen's Daily Meditations. To seek selfishly is only to lose happiness. Sink into self and all its gratifications, and you sink into hell. Rise above self into the state of consciousness, which is the utter denial and forgetfulness of self, and you enter heaven. Self is blind, without judgment, not possessed of true knowledge, and always leads to suffering. Correct perception, unbiased judgment, and true knowledge belong only to the divine state, and only insofar as you realize this divine consciousness can you know what real happiness is. So long as you persist in selfishly seeking for your own happiness, so long will happiness elude you, and you will be sowing the seeds of wretchedness. Insofar as you succeed in losing yourself in the service of others, in that measure will happiness come to you, and you will reap a harvest of bliss. Abiding happiness will come to you when, ceasing to selfishly cling, you are willing to give up. I'm going to reread that last line. Abiding happiness will come to you when, ceasing to selfishly cling, you are willing to give up. The opening, the overarching theme of this meditation, but especially the opening line, is a very important message to be spread today. I believe that I believe it's true. First and foremost, I wholeheartedly, completely agree with that opening line, and I'll read it again. To seek selfishly is only to lose happiness. So what we're saying is, if you selfishly seek, if you try to make yourself happy, if you try to make yourself feel good, if you're going with the sole intention of yourself in mind, what we're talking about here, happiness will elude you. Contentment and joy will elude you. You will not get it. Those are things only truly found and held onto and maintained in a life of service. They're not targets to aim at. They're secondary characteristics that come from living well. When I found that out, I was kind of blew my mind, because in today's society, today's culture, everyone says, find your happy place, seek your happiness, where are you most happy? All of these things based around me pursuing and me knowing and me thinking that I need to get to a happy place of happiness and contentment before I can do anything else, right? Kind of similar to that self-love concept that I've talked about. I don't really agree with these new age things of, oh, find your happiness. You can't find it. It just occurs. It's a spontaneous occurrence out of a contented and well-lived life. Happiness is a side effect. Joy is a side effect. Peace, serenity, These are things that come from living well, but living a righteous, spiritual way of life. Walking that narrowing path. That's what this whole podcast is about. So, to seek selfishly is only to lose happiness. Right on the money there. Let's start on the main body of this. Sink into self and all its gratifications, and you sink into hell. Not really mincing words. That's one thing I like about James Allen. He's pretty straightforward a lot of times when it comes to these important facts of life and these important understandings. It's not too um, doesn't need to really be deciphered too much, right? Sometimes I have to look up a word or redo the stop and redo the wording or the spacing and the enunciations, but very rarely, and because he likes to make it plain, right? Because this isn't supposed to be just for a few chosen people to understand. It's supposed to be made available to everybody to understand and comprehend, right? So when he says something like this, sink into self and all its gratifications, and you will sink in, and you sink into hell. One for one. The more you go out trying to please yourself and serve yourself, the more of hell you will find. Just the way it is. And trust me, I've gone to extreme lengths to try to serve myself and make myself happy. Never worked. Never worked. But he tells us how to do it. Rise above self into that state of consciousness, which is the utter denial and forgetfulness of self, and you enter heaven. So when we stop trying to do things for selfish and self-serving motives, suddenly everything we could have ever wanted, we contain. Love, joy, happiness, peace, serenity, contentment, forgiveness, presence of mind. So many things. And even some of them we talk about the invulnerability. Like we own our own way of living and people can't touch that, right? So the more you forget self, which means the more you do things without yourself in mind, right? Or you do things, do the right thing for the right reason because it's the right thing to do. It's turning into my favorite saying. Do the right thing or take the right action for the right reason because it's the right thing to do with no thought of how it affects yourself at the end of it, right? Or the gain or loss you'll have from it. You do the right thing. You enter into heaven, meaning heaven right here in this immediate moment. There's so much that can change in just a matter of a perception. It's incredible. Self is blind, without judgment, not possessed of true knowledge, and always leads to suffering. That's true. The only thing I know when I'm serving myself is what serves myself. The things I want, the desires I have, the impulses that drive me forward. Self is blind. It's tunnel visioned, thinking only about what I get out of it. That's the way it was for me anyway. With every aspect of my life, too. It was always in consideration to myself. Correct perception, unbiased judgment, and true knowledge belong only to the divine state, and only in so far as you realize this divine consciousness can you know what real happiness is, right? So, correct perception, that's a big thing, having the correct way to look at things. Unbiased judgment means complete objectivity of a situation, right? Without its, again, consideration for how it will affect you, but be able to look at the reality of what's occurring. And true knowledge, meaning knowledge of the spiritual truths, the spiritual laws the way things operate, and the knowledge of serving self and serving God, or serving that power greater than yourself, right? When we become of service to God and others, that's how we get to this divine state that he's talking about. And only insofar as you realize this divine consciousness can you know what real happiness is. The more you become of service, the more you consider others, the more you consider and take the actions of doing the right things with the right intentions, the more happiness you will find. It's out there. And sometimes it becomes selfish because we're like, I'm so happy because I'm doing this. So we'll do it more, and then the happiness will wane because we're doing it with ourselves in mind. It sounds crazy, but it's the truth, right? But the more we're of selfless service to others, more we'll find happiness. So long as you persist in selfishly seeking for your own happiness, so long will happiness elude you. And you will be sowing the seeds of wretchedness. That was the first 29 years of my life. I pursued relentlessly my own happiness. So long, and happiness eluded me for that long. Even into my sobriety, really. So it was probably my first 30, 31 years of life until this really started to turn around for me, and I was starting to kind of get some understanding of what we're talking about here, right? And I sowed the seeds of wretchedness. I destroyed relationships, friendships, family, financial, spiritual, physical. I just kept destroying things, and I became miserable, depressed, suicidal. I didn't know how to live well. I didn't know how to live a good life. I didn't know how to live in a way that happiness could find me. Insofar as you succeed in losing yourself in the service of others, in that measure will happiness come to you, and you will reap a harvest of bliss. Being of service to others, it's an amazing and a powerful thing that changes a person. In ways you can't comprehend until you become of genuine service to someone else. Has been my understanding. So, all right, now it ends with this: abiding happiness will come when ceasing. Okay, excuse me. Abiding happiness will come to you when ceasing to selfishly cling. So, when we let go, we're willing to give up on the pursuit of our own happiness, the pursuit of serving our selfish ends and ourselves only. Then and only then will abiding happiness actually settle into our lives, a contentment with life, to allow the present to be so important. So, all right, another fantastic reading. Absolutely, I'm loving this. The trend that we're getting into in August really is a great set of readings and meditations so far. So, hope y'all are enjoying it as much as I am. So, I'll be back again tomorrow though for August 21st. So until next time, thanks.